What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 111 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Friday, September 26, 2025. I'm your host, Zach Malum, but before we get started, please subscribe below, follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the world of baseball, as both New York teams were in action this week, and we'll start things out in Chicago with the New York Mets. They took on the Chicago Cubs for a 3-game set at Wrigley Field, and it's a must-win series for the Mets, coming off of a horrible series loss to the Washington Nationals on the weekend. They lost 2 games out of 3 on their home field, and they have to bounce back against this tough Cubs team that already clinched a playoff berth, but they are looking for home field advantage during the wild card round. So a lot to play for, and the Mets need a series win, and they get one. They take 2 games out of 3 from the Cubs at Wrigley. It all started on Tuesday evening, where it did not start off strong for this Mets team. It was David Peterson. He got the ball for the Mets, and he only goes an inning and a third in this one. 5 hits allowed, 5 earned runs, 2 walks, and 1 strikeout. 42 pitches is all he gives this Mets team, and that's a bad outing once again for a Mets starting pitcher. We've seen it time and time again, and in the blink of an eye, 4th inning, the Mets are down 6-1 to this Cubs team that really has been strong in the National League. And at that point, you're thinking, all right, it's curtains for game 1. You really just move on to game 2 of the series, try and get the job done there. But the Mets, all of a sudden, their biggest comeback of the year, they put up a 5 spot in the 5th inning behind Brandon Nimmo's 3-run bomb into the right field seats, tied the game at 6, and it was Francisco Lindor who added on to it in the 6th inning with an RBI single. Seiya Suzuki responded with an RBI single of his own to make it 7-7. But it was Francisco Alvarez, the biggest home run of his career by far, it looks like. He ends up taking Caleb Thibaut to the center field bleachers, where it went 403 feet and gave the Mets a 9-7 lead, and the biggest comeback of the year, like I said, for the Mets. What a way to win on Tuesday and start off the series very strong then with the win, and you head into Wednesday's game thinking, all right, well, just got to get one more and win this series. Obviously, wins are hard to come by right now for the Mets, but they have to grab anywhere they could get, and a comeback like that can really give this offense a jolt, give this team a jolt. It didn't give them enough of a jolt heading into Wednesday's game, where the offense kind of struggled again. And then you look at the starting pitcher once again. Jonah Tong got the ball for the Mets in this one, and in the blink of an eye, before you could even look, it's 6-0 Cubs in the 4th inning. Tong only goes 2 innings in this one, 7 hits allowed, 5 earned runs, 2 walks, and 1 strikeout. Another bad performance by a Mets starting pitcher. And really, all of a sudden, you look, it's the 5th inning, and it's 8-2 Cubs. And then in the 6th inning, it is 10-2 Cubs. The Mets went with a bold move here. Carlos Mendoza deciding to go with some starting pitchers just to get them some innings here, as he really used the bullpen, all of the bullpen, the night before against this Cubs team after David Peterson couldn't go far. Used plenty of arms, and then he realizes this game is just out of reach. Get some of these guys some innings, get some of them some work, and Sean Manaea looked really bad in this one. Clay Holmes looked pretty good. He goes an inning with nothing going on, and Sean Manaea really struggled. He ends up going an inning, but allows a 2-run bomb, 2 hits allowed, but a 2-run bomb to Michael Busch that ended up giving the Cubs a 10-2 lead. Finished 10-3. Juan Soto with a solo shot in the 8th inning, and the Mets end up having a tied series going into game 3. Must-win series, like I said, and they have to get the job done heading down to Miami. They end up grabbing the series win with a huge performance on Thursday evening, where they got an 8-5 victory, and it all started with this offense, which completely exploded through the first couple of innings of this game. Brett Baty did the finishing touches in the 4th inning, where it made it 6-0 on a 3-run bomb by Baty, who's been red hot recently and deserves all the praise he can get. It was also, the Mets got a great start once again from Nolan McLean. For the first couple of innings of this one, looked very, very strong. Plenty of strikeouts to go around, 11 strikeouts on the day. That's the most by a Mets starting pitcher this season. He did start to struggle once it got to the later innings of this one. 6th inning, it was Seiya Suzuki who had a 3-run bomb to make it 8-5 Mets. Looked like it was going to get the Cubs back into the game, but the bullpen once again locks things down. They had Stanek, Raley, Rogers, and Diaz who all get the job done, and they lock things down against this Cubs team and take the series 2 games out of 3. A huge series win for the Mets, and now you look at the NL wildcard picture with the Mets sitting in the final wildcard spot. They are now a game up on the Cincinnati Reds, who won earlier in the day yesterday against the Pirates, and it really put a lot of pressure on this Mets team to not lose that series to the Cubs. And Arizona really struggled against a very tough Los Angeles Dodgers team that has much higher aspirations. They made it look easy down in Arizona. So the Diamondbacks are down now 2 games in the wild card picture. The Mets hold their playoff spot in their hands, but it is not going to be easy as they head down to Miami, a 3-game set against the Miami Marlins. It all starts tonight, a 7:10 start as Brandon Sproat gets the ball for New York. He's 0-1 on the year with a 3.94 ERA. On the other side, it's Sandy Alcantara, who is 10-12 on the year, 5.48 ERA. Not great numbers, but we were talking just a couple of weeks ago about a phenomenal outing that Alcantara had at Citi Field where he shut out the New York Mets for 7 innings, and he ends up taking the ball for the Marlins tonight, and the Marlins are not going to make it easy. They have some great pitchers on the mound this weekend. The other side of it is for the Mets, who have a lot of question marks of who's getting the ball for them. They used plenty of pitchers during this Cubs series, and Brandon Sproat, they have to rely on him to try and go deep into this game. They relied on a lot of arms out of the bullpen as well. Even yesterday when Nolan McLean gave them some length, finally a starting pitcher gave them some length, they still ended up using a couple of arms out of the pen, including Edwin Diaz, but they got to get the job done fast in this game, and it has to start with Brandon Sproat giving them some length and locking things down for the most part. The Mets offense on the other side, yeah, you got to find a way to get to Alcantara. He's been really good against the Mets this season, and he's not going to bow down, especially with the recent history we've seen with the Miami Marlins just winning meaningless games. No need to win, but they do so anyway because they want to play spoiler, and the Marlins really looking towards that, especially with their 3-star pitchers on the mound with Sandy Alcantara tonight. They have Yuri Perez tomorrow and Edward Cabrera on Sunday. So it won't be easy for the Mets. Still a question mark of who they're going to put on the mound against this Marlins team on Saturday and Sunday, but we'll see what happens. Their focus is win this game tonight. Brandon Sproat gets the ball. They have to really pick up where they left off on the offensive end. 8 runs last night. Can they do the same tonight? We'll see what happens. Make sure you tune in all series long. The final series of the year, the biggest series of the year for the New York Mets. It starts 7:10 tonight with Sproat getting the ball for New York. But on the other side of New York, it was the New York Yankees who were also in action this week. They welcomed the Chicago White Sox for a 3-game set at Yankee Stadium, and the Yankees are red hot right now. They've won 8 of their last 9 games. In the midst of that span, they have clinched a postseason berth, but their eyes are set on an AL East title. They are still chasing down the Toronto Blue Jays right now, but the Yankees did a great job this week of just handling their business. They did so in great fashion with a series sweep over the Chicago White Sox. It wasn't easy on Tuesday. Ended up being a comeback. In the bottom of the 9th, they end up getting Anthony Volpe touching home plate on a wild pitch down to their last strike on a pitch that Cody Bellinger walked on. And then it was Jose Caballero who hit a bloop single to center with Aaron Judge coming in to score. And miraculously, the Yankees come back in that one down to their final strike. They win it 3-2 on Tuesday evening, and it was more of the same stuff from the Yankees during this win streak on Wednesday as Max Fried got the ball, and he was terrific. He locked things down. 7 innings in this one, 4 hits allowed, just 1 earned run with 2 walks and 7 Ks, and he pitched 107 pitches in this game. Really great stuff once again by Max Fried, who's been electric since he really hit the month of September. Just a great addition for this Yankees team, and one that they are definitely going to rely on heavily in October. So the Yankees get the job done. They started off this game, the 8-1 win in bad fashion. They allowed a run, but then it was all Yankees after that with home runs, doubles, singles, whatever you want. They got the job done, and Aaron Judge was at the heart of it. Hits 2 more home runs to reach 51 on the season, and just continues to break records and just add himself to some remarkable company in baseball history. So he gets the job done once again for this Yankees team, and they end up heading into the third game of this 3-game set. It was on Thursday, and the Yankees, after they were down and out again in this game, Michael A. Taylor ends up taking Carlos Rodon deep in the 4th inning to give the White Sox a 3-1 lead. But it was Giancarlo Stanton who responded shortly after. In the bottom of the 5th, he clears the bases with a 3-run double, and that gave the Yankees a 4-3 lead. They ended up adding on with Austin Wells, an RBI double to center field, and the Yankees take this game 5-3. A great win for the Yankees as they now head into this final stretch, as Toronto won yesterday against the Boston Red Sox. Finally took one of those games in that 3-game set against Boston. Boston took the series 2 games out of 3. So the Yankees and the Blue Jays knotted up in the AL East. They are tied right now. However, Toronto has the tiebreaker. So the Yankees, all they can do is handle their business, and they welcome a tough opponent to Yankee Stadium, a team that's not going to just bow down to them. The Baltimore Orioles come to town for a 3-game set at Yankee Stadium. It's going to be Trevor Rogers who gets the ball for the Orioles in this game. 9-2 on the year, 1.35 ERA, and if there's been a bright spot for this Orioles pitching staff, it definitely has been Trevor Rogers this season. Will Warren gets the ball for the Yankees. He's 8-8 on the year with a 4.35 ERA. Last start didn't go so well down in Baltimore, so he's looking to bounce back from that one, and he's going up against the same pitcher that he did last time in the lefty Trevor Rogers. So we'll see what happens. It should be a great game between the Yankees and the Orioles, a great series in the end. Can the Yankees get a spot in the American League as a division winner? We'll see what happens. Baltimore is the focus right now for this Yankees team, and the second thing on their mind is what the Blue Jays are able to do against the Rays for their 3-game set on the weekend. So we'll see what happens, but the Yankees take on the Orioles. It all starts 7:05 tonight with Rogers against Warren at the stadium. Shifting things to MetLife Stadium, the Jets and the Giants have made a lot of noise this week, but the headlines go to the Giants side as they go with Jaxson Dart, the rookie quarterback out of Ole Miss. He's going to be their starting quarterback for Week 4 against the LA Chargers. They finally make a move, an interesting one by Brian Daboll and crew, but it was time as they look at Russell Wilson and what he was able to do. One really good game down in Dallas, but 2 really bad games against the Commanders and the Chiefs, and it really just came down to the 0-3 record. You look at that, and your record really tells you what you are, and Russell Wilson just was not good enough for the Giants in the end in those couple of weeks against Washington and Kansas City. Brian Daboll is on the hot seat, so you can't really blame him too much for going down with his QB if he does. I mean, when you look at Jaxson Dart, though, he has a lot of great tools at quarterback. The big things is he's got to do what Russell Wilson didn't. When you get into the red zone, you got to cash in on it. The Giants weren't able to do that. They were 4 of 20 in the red zone in the first 3 weeks of the season. That is abysmal for this Giants team. And then you look at third down, they really struggled again in those situations as well. Got to get the job done. And you also got to keep the ball. Don't turn the ball over. Russell Wilson chucking balls downfield, trying to find Malik Neighbors somewhere, but he's covered, and the Chiefs ended up picking him off twice with 2 just deep balls that he's throwing to nobody. So they end up getting Russell Wilson out of there. They put Jaxson Dart in. It should be interesting how this goes for Jaxson Dart going up against a very tough Chargers defense and a Chargers team 3-0 on the year, playing great ball right now, and they look really scary on the defensive side especially. So we'll see what happens with Jaxson Dart and how he navigates through that. But, I mean, you really got to keep the ball, and something that Russell Wilson was unable to do. Hopefully Jaxson Dart is able to do that. The other thing with Dart is he's really capable of using his legs and getting out of the pocket and making something out of nothing. You don't want him to do that too much because, of course, that leads to some mistakes. But, I mean, he's young. He's really getting into his NFL career pretty early here, probably a lot earlier than he expected even to get into this one. I mean, maybe the Giants could have thought about Jameis Winston to take over, and maybe that gets the offense going. But like I said, Brian Dable's on the hot seat, so he needs to get the job done now. He needs to prove to ownership now that he can be the guy and he can help develop this young stud in Jaxson Dart. So we'll see what happens. But the Chargers come into this game as 6.5-point favorites, total sitting at 43.5. It comes down to, can the Giants keep the ball on offense? Can they score enough points that it allows their defense a little bit of breathing room, something that they really have been unable to do so in recent weeks? Their defense, yes, played horribly in week 2 against Dallas, but it doesn't all come down to that. The offense just did not give them enough room in certain scenarios, and that really was the difference in the game. So you look at the Giants offense overall, hopefully things change with Jaxson Dart with the ball in his hands, but we'll see what happens. 6.5-point dogs they are on their home field. Not going to be easy, and a very tough test to start a young NFL career for Jaxson Dart. It's the Jets who are also in action this week. They are on Monday Night Football, though. They get the off day on Sunday. They're already down in Miami, and they're taking on the Miami Dolphins, who are both teams 0-3 on the year. Not been a great start for either side, and just a team looking for a win here. The Dolphins come into this game surprisingly 2.5-point favorites, total sitting at 44.5. I think it just comes down to the Dolphins are at home, the Jets are on the road. I think, yeah, the Jets have not looked great in certain scenarios on the defensive side, and Miami could maybe take advantage of that with their explosive offense. A lot of speedy guys out wide, and in the backfield, Devon Achane looking and really licking his lips for this matchup against the Jets, whose run defense has not been great recently, although they did look better a week ago against Bucky Irving and the Tampa Bay Bucks. But when you look at the rest of this Jets defense, the secondary is getting pieced apart every single week. It looked like it in week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then you struggled once again against the Buffalo Bills. And then Baker Mayfield was able to get down the field easily to have the Bucks kick the game-winning field goal in the final seconds of that loss last week for the Jets. So they have to figure things out on the defensive side. They ended up grabbing a corner during the week. They made a trade with a late-round pick swap. They also get Jarvis Brownlee Jr., the cornerback from the Tennessee Titans. So he's more set in there for the run defense as well. Not really much of the pass defense, but you never know. We'll see what happens as the Jets look to really bounce back after a tough loss and a tough pill to swallow a week ago after they had the win in their hands. They gave it away with not being able to get a defensive stop against Tampa Bay. So we'll see what happens. 7:15 on Monday. It's the Jets taking on the Dolphins. The matchup of the 0-3s. Who's going to be 0-4. But it's now time for a Sunday football preview. If you're new to this, each week I'll pick a couple of the top games across the NFL slate and share my thoughts on them. Let's start things down in Tampa. A battle of the 3-0s as the Philadelphia Eagles take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This one's Sunday at 1 o'clock. And the Eagles, a bit surprisingly, come in as 3.5-point favorites, total sitting at 44.5. I know the Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champs, and they've looked really good this year, especially on offense, able to come back in games. They look explosive in certain areas. Really not Saquon Barkley, but it looks like the rest of this Eagles offense looks very strong and is picking up where they left off from a season ago. But this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team is no slouch. They are 3-0 for a reason. They get the job done, and 3.5-point dogs on their home field. This might be a spot for Tampa to get the job done on their home field against a tough opponent. I know that it's going to be tough against Philly, but I do think this Tampa Bay offense can take advantage of a Philly defense that's not been great so far this season. They've been down early in games, forcing their offense to come back in these games. But Tampa, on the other side of things, yes, it was close against the Jets last week, but that's really because they let the Jets back into the game. Their offense looks very explosive every time they get the ball. They got some real good weapons out wide, with Chris Godwin looking like he might come back for this one after the dislocated ankle from a year ago. Then you look at Emeka Egbuka, who has really started off this season strong. You also have Mike Evans, who's probably not going to be out in this game due to that hamstring problem. Looks like he's going to be out a couple weeks. But you look at the rest of the weapons, it looks like it's a real tough test for this Philly defense. I wouldn't be so sure that Philly's going to go down to Tampa and win by over 3.5 points, by over a field goal. I just don't see it happening. I think Tampa has a point to prove in this game, being an underdog like this on their home field. So we'll see what happens. Should be a great game, though. 3-0 teams going at it Sunday at 1 o'clock. And another game in the AFC now where, I mean, if you told me heading into the season, both these teams would start off 1-2, I'd be like, huh? How in the world does that happen? It's had to do with some tough schedules for both of these teams, but it's the Baltimore Ravens traveling to Arrowhead to take on the Kansas City Chiefs, the battle of the 1-2s, as these teams meet 4:25 on Sunday afternoon. And it's the Ravens who, on the road, come in as 2.5-point favorites, total sitting at 48.5. Interesting line here, as the Chiefs are dogs at Arrowhead. Not really going so well for them in recent history, for Vegas' sake. And really, the Chiefs have dominated at Arrowhead in recent years. I don't know if they're going to start losing anytime soon there as well. So we'll see what happens with that one. But I do think I'm going to take the Chiefs to win this game because they are at Arrowhead. I know that it's not been the same type of Chiefs team. Their defense is a little shaky, but looked pretty good last week against the Giants. I know this is a different animal against this Ravens offense with Derrick Henry as well as Lamar Jackson. But those two guys have kind of been a little bit shaky on their own side this year. That's what led to the 1-2 record for Baltimore, but their defense as well has been a huge problem this year. They've let up so many points. They let up a ton to the Lions last week. They let the Bills come back into that game as well in week 1. So they have a point to prove on the defensive side of things. And the Chiefs offense has to look better. I think really that's the story of the line in this game. 2.5. I think it's due to the matchup of the bad against bad. The Chiefs offense is not great so far this year. Dealt with a lot of injuries, as well as I think they're just time on offense, and this being this explosive offense is coming to an end. I just don't think they can keep up with it with some of the guys that they have right now. But you look at the Ravens side of things, they have explosive plays all over the place, and that's something that's going to be a challenge for this Chiefs team. So I am going to take the Chiefs, even though, yes, a lot of points to prove for the Ravens. I do think the Chiefs, though, at Arrowhead will handle their business and be the team that goes to 2-2. It really could be a lot of panic mode for the Ravens, though, if they do fall to 1-3. I do think it's the same on the Chiefs side. 1-3 after making it to the Super Bowl the year before. It could get dicey there for either one of those teams, and could be time to make some moves for either one of those teams. So we'll see what happens with that one. But the final game I'm going to preview is the Sunday night game, and it's the return of one Micah Parsons. He goes back to Dallas for the first time as a Green Bay Packer, and it all starts 8:20 on Sunday night, and it's the Packers who come into this game large favorites. 6.5 is the spread, total sitting at 47.5. So the Packers, really, the sign coming in is they have to be better on offense than they were a week ago against the Cleveland Browns, where they completely gave the game away. Jordan Love and this offense had a 10-0 lead and completely blew it. And then now they go to Dallas against this Cowboys defense that cannot stop a nosebleed. They've been horrible this year. Every game, they've just let up tons of points. And yeah, maybe they made a statement a little bit in week 1 against Philadelphia, but they still lost the game due to the defense. So they could not get the job done there, and they end up starting this season 1-2. The Packers on the other side are 2-1. I do think the Packers win this game pretty easily. I think Micah Parsons, probably a couple sacks on his mind, and really he's going to be the storyline all throughout this game. It's not even the rest of the teams. It's not even the Packers against the Cowboys. It is Micah Parsons against Dallas. That's what it is. Against Jerry Jones, we'll say, in Jerry's world. So that should be a great game. The Packers taking on the Cowboys. 8:20 start on Sunday night. And make sure you tune in to all of these games. It should be a great Sunday of NFL football. But that will do it for episode 111 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malamuth. Thanks for watching, and talk to you all on Monday.